Hello, and welcome to the Data Engineering Podcast, the show about modern data management. Your host is Tobias Macy, and today I'm interviewing Yetunde Dada about Otto, Astronomer's expert airflow agent. So, Yetunde, can you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me as well. So, my name's Yetunde. I'm a senior director of product management at Astronomer. You'll find me across the Astronomer ecosystem because I oversee things. We're going to talk about Otto today, but I also lead other initiatives like Cosmos, which is our way of converting DBT projects into Airflow DAGs. My background before this is many, many years in the open source space. I think there's been a previous version of your show where you actually covered Kedro, which was a data engineering and data science framework that I worked on many, many years ago. So it's good to see you again and be back.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I definitely remember that one. Yeah, I've been doing this show for probably too long.
Not long enough, not long enough.
There keeps being enough interesting things to keep it going. So, yeah, I guess, can you just give a bit of an overview about how you get started working in data and what keeps you here?
Sure. So I guess my origins go way, way, way back. I started off as a data product manager, so more of a consumer of data in a bank in South Africa. It was there that I started I think this was in the beginnings of Hadoop and Spark, way back in the day when we were trying to obviously create these big data pipelines, combine all of our customer data together in the corporate investment banking setting. My journey beyond that was actually more thinking about the data engineering teams, the data analyst teams that were actually trying to work with the data and building tools to support them. So that was the journey with Kedro when I was at Quantum Black. I got to work quite closely with Pete on the astronomer side because there was a natural entry point where we said Kedro, what it does is it's kind of like Django or React for data science and data engineering projects. And there's a natural entry point where you say, okay, you've got this production ready data product and you want to put it into production and you want it orchestrated. So just do it with Airflow. And that was how I got to know Pete. And yeah, now you obviously see me on the astronomer side. So always been passionate about data and I guess how it actually helps people when it's correct, when it's timely. So yeah.
Now you're in the vanguard of the net new and yet to be explored area of the combination of data engineering and agentic capabilities. So I'm wondering if you can give a bit of overview about what Otto is and some of the story behind how it came to be and why you're building it.
So I guess for this, we've obviously seen how agents and their use specifically in code and on the software engineering side has been quite prolific. These tools have become incredible for the work that we need to do when we talk about generic software engineering. But last year we actually ran a survey. We're quite active participants in the State of Apache Airflow survey. And we did find while a lot of data engineers are using a lot more of the generic coding tools and being productive with them, only 9% of them could actually speak about the quality of the code that was being produced by the coding tools. They often spoke about the missing context that it needed to be excellent in what it did. So there was, there's obviously time spent where you have to create the context for it yourself or spend time editing the code that it was producing or doing additional steps to troubleshoot, for instance, if you were trying to use it in that use case. So it became an exam question for us where we said, okay, cool. What does it look like if we actually help provide that context and we provide that layer so that we could make any agent really productive? And this spurned Otto and the work that we've done to really just cement it as astronomers' perspective and way that we celebrate Airflow and make sure that our data engineers are productive when working on the myriad of things that you'd be doing in your day-to-day.
For people who are looking at Otto and deciding whether and how to use it, what are some of the core problems that you're really tackling with the Otto product, and who is the target audience, just sort of the characteristics of who is best served by it?
So for this one, I'll start with a persona because, product loves this question, but it's data engineers and the range of things that you do. When we speak about Otto's capabilities, it'll help you all the way from things like DAG authoring and making sure that it's encoded with Airflow best practices when writing that code, all the way through to doing upgrades. That's a major capability that Otto has. The skill that's present in Otto doesn't only do major version bumps of Airflow. So we know there's obviously a big conversation around moving from Airflow 2 to 3 because Airflow 2 will be reaching end of life. But it also helps with minor version updates as well, so 3.1 to 3.2, as well as keeping your provider ecosystem up to date as well, because we obviously know that there'll be new versions released. Otto also helps with things like doing investigations. So we obviously know as a data engineer, your pipelines will inevitably fail because nothing is perfect and errors will pop up. But we have like specific capabilities built into Otto, which really help with troubleshooting and really cutting down that mean time to resolution as well. Additionally, as well, Otto also comes prepackaged with capabilities, well, for migrating code. Some of our customers have spoken about like their journeys of moving from legacy schedulers like Control M and AutoSys to Airflow because they really want to standardize on Airflow as the way that they do things going forward because it's open source and it can be more widely supported across the organization. So it really does come packaged with some of those capabilities that we expose to some of our customers when they opt in for it. There's obviously like a host of ways that we've also found our customers still leverage and use it. One of my favorites I was hearing about recently was how our customer will use it to do health checks on their data platform and really just find things that they need to be resolving on a day to day. So it really does try to be a partner for you across the many things that you'll be working on.
And as far as the design and rollout of Otto, obviously you can't boil the ocean and get everything done all at once. So I'm wondering, what was your process for figuring out what are the initial set of capabilities that we're going to target and focus on and refine, particularly given that agentic capabilities are still being discovered as far as how best to architect and implement them. And also there is the probabilistic element, so you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, it has a high success rate and a low error rate, particularly for the target audience that you're focusing on.
I guess it speaks about like the journey that we've actually taken with Otto. So last year we released a product called the Astro IDE, which is an in-browser web-based interface for authoring DAGs or modifying them. And we also have a workflow for testing DAGs against like ephemeral deployments so that you can easily spin up the DAG, quickly test it, and then obviously commit the changes so that you can push them downstream and do whatever you need to there. What we started to see with this interface that we had for the Astro IDE was the type of questions that people were obviously going to be asking as they interacted with it. Obviously, the first use cases that Otto in the end solved for initially was the DAG authoring and DAG modification use cases. But we also saw as well that a lot of folks would be using it for troubleshooting. So the case for building out specific capabilities for investigations became the next big angle that we looked at. We also did see as well that a lot of folks would also use it for upgrading their code at the many different levels and helping using the agent to make those code changes, especially when there's breaking changes involved with actually changing the structure of your code. So that was another use case that we decided to double down on. I think going forward as well, like this does speak to like where to next in terms of like some of the capabilities that we want to support with Otto. There's been some questions around how do we, for instance, right size our deployment on Astro, and we're busy looking at different ways to like make those use cases like come to life so that Otto in a way can assist our customers there. But I mean, like we will also call out as well that there were high acceptance rates for the code even in the space. I think we speak about like an 80 to 90% acceptance rate, straight acceptance rate for our customers like being able to choose and commit the code that Otto is producing for them as well. So yeah, that was kind of like how we thought about like the initial capabilities. I will also speak about some of the work that we've also done building out additional use cases as well. So this also speaks to like the way that Otto is constructed. Otto has, in terms of skill set and skills that are available to it as markdown files, will have like a component that is present in the open source community as well. So we have on our Astronomers organization on GitHub, we have a repo called basically agents. And what it does is it has like 25 skills that we've seen across the data engineering ecosystem as well that do like a host of things, like whether it's the DAG authoring case to working with DBT, working with Cosmos, as I mentioned as well, like our framework for converting DBT projects into Airflow DAGs. So there's like always additional use cases that we see that will be called. So yeah.
In terms of the skills in particular, that is definitely one of the higher leverage capabilities for anybody who's investing in agentic engineering. It's definitely something that I and my team have been spending a lot of time on. And one of the challenges is making sure that it is useful enough without being overly prescriptive, because then it guides the agent on too narrow of a path and also constrains the set of technologies that it's able to reason about. And so I'm curious what your process is for developing and designing and evaluating those skills, particularly as models and harnesses and tool chains evolve over time.
You basically run into like one of our active work streams. We're working quite closely with the university. I won't reveal just who yet because we need to figure out like how we do the press embargo stuff. But you will see stuff coming out of the work that we're doing here. What we've basically designed is like a test bench, which basically encompasses a range of like data engineering tasks. We've also assessed as well like the complexity and the hardness of those tasks as well when developing our bench. And the tasks are designed to look across use case or different activity that you would be doing with the agent and being productive with it. We're running basically Otto versus like other generic agents through the gauntlet of those engineering tasks and also assessing as well the cost that it takes, the range of accuracy or completeness that it does when trying to complete the task, and obviously developing the framework there. We will be open sourcing the framework as well, the data engineering benchmark, to make sure that, going forward, when people look at how they develop new agents to also tackle things across the data engineering stack, that they can use this as an additional way of assessing its capabilities and also make things better. It's one of the ways I think that we get to celebrate in the open source community as well, building better agents so that our data engineers can be more productive. But it also makes it easier for us to also show you why Otto's capabilities rank higher than most other agents because of the way that it's built.
Digging now a bit more into Otto and its particular relationship to Astronomer in terms of the target, it makes sense because the orchestrator is intended to be the core element of any data platform. It has the most visibility, it has the highest potential leverage for impacting the entire data estate of an organization, presuming that it's actually being properly utilized. And so I'm wondering if you can talk to some of the architectural aspects of Airflow in particular that lend it to be something that a system like Otto can work well against, and just some of the peculiarities and particularities of Airflow that you've had to either reconsider, and just some of the ways that the interplay between the orchestration framework and the agent that you're developing forces changes to your overall design and approach across that boundary.
And, if I actually just build on your question, I guess it depends on how you're using Airflow as well, as to whether or not like Airflow is truly in the interception path behind having all the context that it needs to be able to answer that question. I guess this actually also does suggest as well, one of the ways or that we have decided to like build out Otto is especially when you're using it in the CLI, because maybe this is another thing. Otto is available via the Astro IDE, which is our in-browser workflow there. It's also available via our CLI, which is the Astro CLI. So you can just get started and use it there. When we talk about like Otto and the CLI and its uses there, the fact that it's able to call in additional MCPs to complete the picture is one of the ways that we find that our customers have been in particular successful with it. Because, to your point around like the way that Airflow works, Airflow is the supreme orchestrator. We know this and it does its job fantastically well. But one of its design considerations is that because it's so broad and so general, unless you're very specific about telling it what each individual task does and where all of the context around that task is located, you might not necessarily have the full picture. So, to give you an example, what this would have meant with our investigation capabilities in Otto, when it was initially designed, we had situations with our customers where they would say things like, "Hey, the investigation agent has told me like, yes, this task has failed, but it's basically told me like the error is somewhere in Databricks and like kind of like go figure it out." And for that's when we want to talk about our vision towards like self-healing pipelines, for it to stop, for the journey to stop around troubleshooting at that boundary is not enough for us. Which is why like Otto more broadly, especially in the CLI, has obviously a way for you to set up your MCP so that it can actually go forth and go and help you troubleshoot in the platform and you can complete the answer there. So yeah, it does depend obviously like on exactly how you're using Airflow. I will say as well, like it does. I also maybe I can call out, why, for instance, like you'd maybe use Cosmos, for instance, when we talk about like making sure that airflow is complete and has that full picture, like tools like Cosmos, which obviously stretch into your DBT project and really help unfold it into it being a full airflow DAG, is much better than you using, for instance, like a bash operator or a qubit or KPO to be orchestrating and calling the DBT CLI to complete that picture there. So the more information you give to airflow and the more central it is in your pathway, the better time actually you have with using these agents to have a one-stop answer, especially when things are not going as expected.
And for people who are developing these pipelines, they're bringing Otto into the mix. I'm sure a lot of them have already started experimenting with some of the more generic general purpose agents, such as Claude Code or Codex or Open Code or Copilot, what have you. What are some of the distinctions and what are some of the reasons that they might reach for Otto specifically instead of their day-to-day driver coding agent? And what are some of the specific workflows and capabilities that Otto not necessarily enforces but encourages that you can't easily replicate by just pulling in a set of skills into whatever your day-to-day agent harness might be?
So for this one, like obviously we are the Airflow company, and we've spent a lot of time like curating proprietary knowledge that is not necessarily available in the open source community. In particular, I'll call out like three branches of it. One might be exactly on how to use the Astro platform, and we make that obviously available to Otto as a knowledge base. Another one to call out is the capabilities around troubleshooting and investigating DAG and task failures, because like we have like extensive knowledge on like how to resolve those issues. So we've built that into Otto too. And the last one to call out is that the knowledge base around upgrading Airflow DAGs, especially moving from major versions, minor versions, and then equally the knowledge around like upgrading like your provider ecosystem as well is extensive. And that's also made available to Otto there. So what you eventually see when our customers like actually talk about like whether or not they're going to be using Claude Code or Codex in their workflow, they'll often reach for Otto when working with Airflow, because it is like the best tool in and above it being able to load like the public documentation and the Astronomer documentation into its interface. They'll use that, and they actually talk about it just being extremely good at Airflow in and above those generic tools, because it has that, we'd call it the public knowledge that any of these generic tools could use. It obviously has the Astro proprietary knowledge also built into it. And then it also has like, additionally, we have ways to obviously store memories and remember things about its interactions when you're doing things like, perhaps it would be as simple as this DAG always fails, just retry it. And being able to store it, that not, those pieces of knowledge as context for Otto to be using going forward. So it does get smarter over time.
To that point of getting smarter and self improvement in an agent context, that also brings up some of the challenges and complexities when you're building any data engineering oriented tool is the concept of data access and data ownership, and also the potential for lock in, where data engineers are allergic to any potential for vendor lock in. We want our data to be easily transferred and migrated wherever we want it to as the winds and whims change. And so I'm wondering if you can talk to some of the ways that you've thought about that aspect of the design of Otto to make sure that it is fully visible and in control of the person who's using it and avoids any potential vendor lock, and then also the security and data access sensitivity element of it to make sure that there are very clear and well understood boundaries about what data is accessed, when, and where it might be applied, so that there's no risk of training on somebody's corporate data.
So I'll first speak to like how, we obviously save additional context about you, especially as you move through your journey of like using Otto. We do obviously adopt like a lot of the open source patterns around like being able to save memories to a markdown file for you to access and make it so that you can edit it as well. So in terms of that whole thing of like, okay, I've been heavily reliant on Otto, and for whatever reason, I want to be able to use this context in other situations, that's just saved to like your Git repo so that you are productive already in those situations. And you can obviously point a new agent to use it there. We have thought extensively about security, data privacy, and also letting our customers know exactly what forms of data are consumed by Otto, how we make sure that we're protecting their privacy as we use it. The way that Otto is designed, at least, so Otto has obviously its skills based. Part of it is proprietary, and the other part of it is open source. And then all of this is connected by our LLM gateway, which allows you to choose which models you'd like to use through our model provider. We have thought extensively about like how we allow our customers to access the different models. And there is like heavy separation around like their data that is used, because obviously we'd be accessing things like your code. We would see your prompts through the LLM gateway as well, that all of those things are air gapped between our customers as well. So there's no cross sharing at all. It's just you and the way that you interact with Otto, as opposed to it being broadly available. So the way that you find that information, if you were very curious, for whatever reason, is like we do have a very good trust website, which actually talks about how we think about data privacy and security for our customers to make sure that, really they can trust that we have their best interests at heart when they're using Otto and these agents.
And the other interesting aspect of any agent engineering is the model choice factor, where somebody maybe has an existing enterprise license with one AI vendor or another. Maybe they focus on open weight models that they run themselves, or maybe they even have their own in house model. And that can dramatically change the capabilities and behaviors of the agent within a given harness, within a given set of skills. And so I'm wondering, what are some of the challenges that you're dealing with in terms of the design and implementation to have that adaptability and element of choice for people?
This actually does suggest, like, what are some of the things we've learned about our customers as well as we've been on this journey? Because, like, for some of our customers, to your point, they might just have a preference and have standardized on a single tool that they use in their organization. Or it might even be as simple as, like, look, it's hectic. Let's say hectic to get AI tools approved internally in their organization, and they're worried about like how do they get another one approved, especially when this one is a standard choice. With this one, we've kind of made two steps to actually solve it, and they're going to be shipped, over the next month or two. The first one is an ability to bring your own model. So within the LLM gateway, we're making it possible to kind of bring your own API key to your model so that you can plug it into the spaces like where Otto fits across the Astro platform. So whether it's through the CLI or through our IDE or even on the Astro workspace, and we would be able to leverage your model, especially where you have like these requirements. And then the second thing as well is like we're just about to re-release our Astro MCP as well. And obviously, the scope of the MCP was largely around like, providing a wrapper, you could say around like the Astro API and like some of the functions that you can do there. We will also make as well in that package a way for you to access Otto skills as well as part of the package that you get with the Astro MCP. And in this world, it means obviously that, if you'd standardize on a specific agent, you could still actually leverage at least Otto skills in order to be productive with the workflow, especially in cases where you do have a preference around using a specific agent and want to do that.
And so, digging now into Otto itself, can you describe some of the design and architecture of that utility and some of the ways that the scope and implementation have evolved from when you first started building it?
So, in terms of like the way Otto is constructed, there are two layers of basically like proprietary and open source knowledge. The open source knowledge comes from the agents repo, which I spoke about, that you should go have a look at. And then obviously we have a proprietary knowledge base that is also part of the equation for Otto. It is all behind an LLM gateway, which basically allows like our customers to choose which model they want to use through our model providers. So they have the flexibility to do that. To your point around like what kind of like architectural decisions and choices like have we made, and I guess I can also speak to like Otto v2, which is also one of the things that we're working on now. I think in tune with like all of the work that we've done on the benchmarks and really assessing like Otto against like specific use cases and how well it stacks on being able to complete like data engineering tasks in a timely way, using less tokens, and making sure that obviously our customers spend less. Otto is built on top of the Pi framework as well. We've taken a real stab at really looking at what it means for which context to be applied to Otto. These models have become very good at what they do in terms of like how they know about airflow and have a wide understanding of it. So not all context as we had it in the previous version, in the current version of Otto, is necessary for it to be productive because the agents already know. So you do see us making this exercise of we're applying context, running that version of Otto through the gauntlet of data engineering tasks, assessing if that context made Otto significantly better because that's the delta. And then if not, removing that context as well. So you are going to see as well like a slimmer version of Otto, which only really has the stuff that really makes it exceptional against the other agents. And that's what will be packaged and released. So yeah, those are some of the changes that we've made.
Also, because you are bringing this into the workflow of an organization and a team, those teams have their own dynamics, they have their own preferences. They want to make sure that Otto is well aligned to their stylistic guidelines, their data quality controls. What are the different axes along which they can personalize and extend Otto to fit their particular situation?
Cool. So with this one, Otto does respect if you're using like Claude MD or Skills MD, Skills Markdown file, like Claude does respect those things. So we always think of that as like the bucket of like team context that you might be applying to Otto to make sure that it actually is following like best practices and guidelines with the way that it works. In particular, though, I will call out like when we shipped the initial version of like Otto in the Astro IDE, the additional thing that it used to do was obviously refer to the whole code base as the standard for how it should be mimicking and writing code as well. So it would also consider that when it was doing code generation. I think as much as possible, even though we don't know how the initial code base was developed and whether or not that code base is best practice, it is the code base that is most familiar to your end users and to the way that you write. So Otto does try and respect some of those things as well, but it might make suggestions on like how to improve things if it does see like, bad practices being done. So yeah.
As people are starting to bring Otto into the mix, what are some of the ways that it changes their overall approach or workflow, or just some of the adoption curve of people, particularly if they haven't already been heavy users of agents and they just say, my airflow system is a mess. I need to get it into better shape. I'm going to bring in Otto because it's just magic. It'll do everything I want it to do. I don't even have to think about it. Just some of the, I guess, misconceptions or proper approaches for how to introduce it to a team, especially if they haven't already built up that muscle of working heavily with agents for other areas of their engineering work.
To be fair, with the way that agents are so prolific, there's agents everywhere. Most of our customers that have had experience like with some or other tool when using it, and obviously for them, like when they try Otto, the real differentiating factor is like its knowledge on Astro and its knowledge on Airflow, which really does change the game for them. I can maybe speak to like two examples of like customers that have used Otto for different purposes and really used it to make themselves like productive in situations. So the first one is Janus Henderson Investors. They're one of the world's like largest asset managers, and really for them, like the use case for them was around like how do we make sure that we can reduce the mean time to resolution for our DAG failures. Like when a DAG goes down for them at like 3 a.m. in the morning, that's money lost for them as a company. And they used to have like tons of on-call engineers that their job was just to be maintaining these pipelines. So they built Otto into their Lighthouse product. And basically the focus of Otto in this situation is how can we help with investigating the failure the moment that it happens, creating the PR, especially if a code fix is required. And then also if the answer is just retriggering the task to see if that actually does it, like Otto should do that for them. And it does it via the Astro API. And then if it's anything that it can't really fix, then it should hand it over to the team to come and look at it. They talk about like a 95% reduction in the mean time to resolve like open bugs and things that they have related to like their DAGs as really like one of the ways that they talk about success of this initiative. Another case might be as well, to your point, because you did bring it up when you spoke about like some teams that have not really like adopted like maybe agents in their day-to-day. I can also give a case about like a customer that needed to adopt Airflow because they were trying to do what we call like a legacy tool migration. So they're one of the UK's like largest like consumer electronic companies, and yeah, they have many stores and then also have a logistics network that manages like the sale of electronics. They spoke about wanting to sunset their jam scheduler, and they had about like 5,000 jobs on this jam scheduler and needed to very quickly get up to speed with Airflow because that was the tool the data engineering team had selected that they were going to be moving to. Otto was essential in the team being able to get up to speed with Airflow knowledge and also migrate a host of jobs in a very short time scale. And when they started using Otto in this way, they had experience with other tools like Copilot, but still found as well like the quality of the code that was coming out of Otto, the fact that it was best suited to like Airflow and Astro was actually best fit for them. So they continue to like work with Otto on their journey of like modernizing like their data platform. And as they sunset more tools and move to Airflow, like it really is an essential tool for them around the journeys of like upskilling, along the journeys of like DAG authoring in this case as well. And then also they also use it as well for like DAG improvements like going forward. So yeah.
And as people are investing more in using Otto as part of their day to day work, one of the other challenges of generating new code is the challenge of validating it. And I know that Otto has a PR review capability. And I'm wondering if you can talk to some of the work that went into ensuring that that was providing enough confidence for people to be able to actually move faster, because it doesn't matter how much code you can generate if you never ship any of it, and just some of the other elements of building useful and accurate validation loops into that overall use case of pushing more of the change through agents that are directed by human operators.
So I guess there's actually like two layers to thinking through how you validate your code, because you could validate it at the time of like development, and then you can validate it at the time like the PR is created. I'll speak to both for Otto as well because it does have tools that help you with both of those things. Otto, especially when you're working through with it through the CLI, will actually call something we've called like AF CLIs, the Airflow CLI, and it's a trimmed down version of the Astro CLI, and it was built with the intent that it's more agent friendly. The Astro CLI is built for humans to be using, so it has like more of an interactive feel as you're working through it. And we really did want an approach where an agent could interact with the CLI and be productive with it. Because Otto has access to this tool, it's actually able to validate your code for you. So it will spin up a local Airflow instance for you, it will trigger your DAGs for you, it will troubleshoot and resolve the errors for you as well before you're ready to create obviously your PR and work from there. Now, to your point of raising the fact that Otto actually helps with code review, we do actually have skills that are focused on reviewing the code against Airflow best practices, against things like the Airflow upgrade knowledge base as well. So even the code that you're working against, like it will constantly be checking to see if this code is up to scratch, and then make suggestions as well on like what to improve as well for like the person that is reviewing the code. Teams will use this in and above whatever, because some of our customers do use another code review tool that has other best practices like built in, but Otto is like basically the layer on top that is the Airflow Astro expert that will help guide the PRs and the changes that they need to do there.
As you are bringing Otto into the ecosystem, working with your customers, onboarding engineering teams, what are some of the most interesting or innovative or unexpected ways that you've seen it applied?
So I will speak to like one of our customer use cases that's probably like my favorite. They've decided to use Otto as a way to do a health check across the Astro platform for them. Like what Otto does in this situation is it generates like a daily report of the performance of Astro across their deployments. So it gives a read on like what is happening with their deployments, what is happening with their DAGs. And when they have this generated report, they basically triage specific issues that they need Otto to go resolve. And Otto is the functional partner with helping them manage their workload and address specific issues that they find. I think for this, it's like it does speak to obviously one of the reasons like why we developed this, which is that we want you to have an agent that is your partner alongside all of the work that you have to do. You'll have like so many competing priorities and things that you need to keep up to date. And if you can hand off like some of the most boring pieces of your work to an agent to go and do, like why not? So yeah, I think probably using Otto for health checks, I think has been like one of my favorite to learn.
And as you are working in the space, building this system, helping to push the forefront of what agents can do, particularly in the challenging space of data engineering, what are some of the most interesting or unexpected or challenging lessons that you learned personally?
This maybe also speaks to like the roadmap for Otto going forward. So one of the things that we have learned is that, and you did actually allude to it when you said something around like, people have their preferences about like which agents they're using, which interfaces they're also accessing the agents from. And it really has become like one of our goals that we're able to integrate like Otto exactly where you are. So you will see things like over the next few months where Otto comes to the Airflow UI. Because I mean, when you need to troubleshoot a DAG, you're not necessarily anywhere else. You're sometimes on Airflow and need to be able to quickly resolve that. To things like we are working towards releasing an Astro VS Code extension as well, which also brings Otto to your workspace because that's where most of our customers are writing code still to make sure that it's top and present. So yeah, we really speak about like how do we make sure that we can put like Otto in the places that you're working so that you can be productive there and go and use it as opposed to like making you leave different tools. But I think like going forward, I am very excited to see like how all of this agentic work like really does impact the way that we view and see data engineering. My hope is that, Auto, obviously with Auto taking care of like some of the more boring and operational tasks for your work, that you're really able to, really prioritize like the value creation activities up front. The new work that you have around like making the data platform even better, to even things like, obviously working through the massive backlog of like new DAG, requests that you have and being productive there. So I really do see like an exciting future for data engineering just purely because like we have these agents that have become really good for data engineering work. They know the code, they know the data, and they know exactly like how to make you productive there. So yeah.
And on that point of knowing the data, that brings me back around to something that we didn't dig into yet, where the orchestrator knows what it knows, but it's not necessarily a complete view of the entire data estate. And maybe you have three different Airflow instances that are all focusing on different areas of the business or different use cases. And I'm wondering what are some of the elements of things like data catalogs that are maybe more cross-cutting that give the complete view because maybe you don't want to have one Airflow instance running everything, and just some of those other aspects of additional context engineering that you need to do to make sure that Otto actually has the necessary detail to properly design and scope a particular change.
So this is where I actually alluded to the fact that like Auto in the CLI as well, like in particular, can access like supports an MCP connector, has an MCP framework as well. This makes it obviously possible to bring in that additional context because to your point, depending on how deeply integrated you have Airflow in that system, I think I gave the example of like whether or not like you choose to use like for instance like Cosmos, which will unpack the entire DBT project and have a very clear structure for it, as opposed to like using a bash operator or KPO to run the DBT CLI instead, means that you're obviously able to bring in that additional context for like where you need to complete the picture. I, yeah, I do see it as like the partnership between like Airflow and the tool or the thing that it's supposed to orchestrate, and like how you bring in that additional layer to complete the picture. So yeah, I think the only real way to do it is like bring in the context like where you need it, and Auto can do just that.
And for people who are working in the data engineering space, maybe they're already using Airflow, maybe they're using a different orchestrator or no orchestrator at all, or maybe they've already invested a lot into a different agent harness. What are the cases where Otto is the wrong choice?
I guess if you're very, very, no, let's actually break this one down because I think there's ways to go with it. When we talk about like Auto as an entire product, we're talking about its open source skills, it's proprietary and knowledge base, and the fact that it's connected to like our LLM gateway. Okay. And it's available within obviously the Astronomer platform. And we provide like all of the additional tools on top of it, like, having access to memory and storing your team conventions and the like. In situations like where you do have to use your own agent because maybe your organization has picked a specific tool that you're supposed to use, I would say that maybe like Otto doesn't fit for your use case then, because obviously you'd have to go through ways of getting it like approved or chosen to be used in as well. And maybe you don't have the authority to do that. But the reason I thought to highlight like the fact that Otto is broken down into those multiple components means that we can still make the context available to you in different ways. Because in those situations, maybe the better fit for you is to use the Astro MCP, which we're going to be releasing soon, which has obviously access to the Otto skills. So you can pull them into your agent and use them from there. Or if you need to go a step further and just use open source, widely available open source things, then I'd recommend that you'd use the agents repo, which we have, which has an available skill set of the open source skills at the least. Doesn't necessarily have the proprietary skills, which are the special sauce for Otto, but you have something if you're going to be using it, especially in the context of working with Airflow as well. So there's different ways that we think to like package up parts of Otto so that you can use it, like, I guess, in the situations where you need it.
And you've mentioned some of the forward-looking plans that you have for Otto, but I'm wondering if there are any other aspects of the roadmap or just particular areas that you're excited to explore that you wanted to share with folks.
I think maybe I obviously spoke about like the surfaces that we're going to make available for Otto. So the Astro MCP, which will be shipping, the VS Code extension, and then also the fact that like Otto will be present on the Airflow UI as well, really as a way to help our data engineers be productive. Maybe the last one I'll talk about is the fact that we're moving towards this lofty vision of self-healing pipelines. There's something about like the Janus Henderson investors example where we saw it was not just that Otto was able to diagnose the issue in their lighthouse design, but also able to act on behalf of the data engineers so that, you do have this wonderful flow between there's something wrong, there is a fix for it, and the human just needs to approve whatever the fix is as a way to shorten time. And these are some of the things that we're working towards across the Astro platform, that we make this capability widely available for all of our customers. In the next quarter, we're kind of working on the resolution pathway for the different things that Otto will diagnose as the issue, because it could be as simple as just retry the stack. It could be as complicated as there is a code change that needs to be made, and it's because of this data issue, or maybe it's failed. We've realized that the data quality check has failed, and we need to try and diagnose these things. We really want to make sure that Otto is really good at resolution before then extending it into ways where we could say, let's make it more automatic for our customers, and maybe say, for instance, that if there's an alert that goes off, that Otto is immediately looking into resolving those things for our customers. So we're definitely on the journey towards building towards that like self-healing future with human approval, of course. And yeah, I'm really excited to see it brought to life.
All right. Well, for anybody who wants to get in touch with you and follow along with the work that you and your team are doing, I'll have you add your preferred contact information to the show notes. And as the final question, I'd like to get your perspective on what you see as being the biggest gap in the tooling, technology, or human training that's available for building data systems today.
You've actually spoken about it like quite extensively, which is the context layer, which is missing, and like how complete that picture is. So I think really like the journey for us is not just us as like Astronomer and Airflow, is to make sure that we have all of the pieces to answer the question. Because like for whatever your tool stack looks like internally in your organization, being able to connect those dots with your agents so that they have all the right pieces is actually where you get the most value in the end. So yeah, I think it's just like, if I could also advise as well, like when you're thinking of constructing your data platform, really making sure that it is accessible to these agents as well so that you can be productive.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today to join me and share the work that you and your team are doing on Otto and just some of the overall challenges and learnings about bringing agents into the messy world of data. So I appreciate all the time and energy you're putting into that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
No, this has been fantastic, and thank you so much for having us. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to check out our other shows. Podcast.net covers the Python language, its community, and the innovative ways it is being used. And the AI Engineering Podcast is your guide to the fast-moving world of building AI systems. Visit the site to subscribe to the show, sign up for the mailing list, and read the show notes. And if you've learned something or tried out a project from the show, then tell us about it. Email hosts at dataengineeringpodcast.com with your story.
And to help other people find the show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends and coworkers.